Let's kick it off. Hi everyone and welcome to the Balls and All. My name's Eli Baraty and alongside me, Ali Pearson, the co-host. Ali?
How you doing? I'm Ali and I'm running the Everything Table Tennis group on Facebook. Some of you might know me, some of you might not. But yeah, that's me.
Lovely. And Edward Lynn?
Hi, I'm the owner of ELTT, Edlin Table Tennis, and I also run the Birmingham Table Tennis Academy at the moment too.
As you can see behind you, right?
Yeah, I'm there now.
Beautiful. And Sammy K.
Hi everyone, I'm Sammy K. I'm from London, but I also attend the University of Warwick, and I also play table tennis for the university as well.
Fantastic. Okay, well, let's kick this show on the road. My very first question I would like to ask all of you, including myself, when you first came into the sport of table tennis, what was in your mind? Did you think, I want to be a professional player, I want to play for England, I just want to have fun, whatever it may be? Can you start us from the beginning? And I'm going to kick this off with Edward Lynn.
Yeah, when I first started playing table tennis, it was purely just for fun. And to be honest with you, I was rubbish.
Like all of us now.
Yeah, no, I was really bad, and I didn't really have any long-term ambitions at all. I just wanted to enjoy it as much as possible. Yeah,
that makes sense. And did that change over the course of time, or was it just I just want to carry on having fun and then have a long-term goal?
No, it definitely changed. Once I started to enter competitions, and I started to lose. That's when I decided that I wanted to win.
Interesting.
And I had a step-by-step approach. I wanted to become a Birmingham champion. And when I managed to achieve that, I wanted to take it a step further and become a regional champion. And that's sort of how it went the whole way through. Yeah.
So all of a sudden, from just going in and playing for a bit of fun, your goal started to
increase.
Increase, yes, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Sammy, how about you?
So my mindset coming into the sport, of course, I love playing and I still do, but my mindset coming into the sport immediately when I first started playing is I want to be good. I want to be good at table tennis. I didn't necessarily want to be the best, but sort of I wanted to be good. And the way I judged that was based on who was around me at the time and the sort of hierarchy of talent or ability. So when I used to play local league, when I sort of started playing, I was in Division 7 at the bottom of the Wembley and Harrow League, and I would look at the other table and look at the best players in the club playing in Division 1. In my mind, those people were good. So when I started playing, I was like, I want to be amongst them and good at table tennis.
Interesting. That's really interesting. So I guess, what, did you walk into a club and all of a sudden then you saw other players and then you thought, okay, I want to be good like them? Or did you see something on TV? How did you kind of get into it first?
So I got into it when I was on holiday.
Okay.
And I was playing on holiday and I wasn't great, but I loved it. And I would see the other kids and they had more sort of ability than me. But I thought, wow, this is so fun. But I want to be in that. I want to be in that sort of loop of the good players. I want to be almost respected. So then I came back home from holiday or whatever. I used to go to the leisure centre in Harrow. I'd play with my parents, start getting a bit better. And then circumstantially, a friend told me about a club that was very close to me in where I lived in London. So I went there and I saw all the players. And from then, because I wanted to be good, I continued with the sport, played local league, and then sort of 20 years old, I haven't stopped since. So yeah.
Nice. And what about yourself, Ali?
Okay, so I had a slightly different sort of introduction into table tennis. Mine was I was a bit of a tearaway, and the youth club that we used to sort of knock around in, not necessarily actually in the youth club, but we used to do, you know, a lot of playing football up against the wall and that sort of stuff, and just generally making a nuisance of ourselves. and then this one lady came out, and she ran the youth club. It was quite a new youth club, and she said to me this one day, you know, do you, instead of like causing trouble outside and messing around and stuff like that, how do you fancy coming in to the youth club and actually doing stuff? And I sort of said, yeah, okay, well, what sort of stuff? And she said, well, you know, what about table tennis? Do you fancy having a game of table tennis? So I said, yeah, why not? But then obviously, you know, so that's sort of how I was introduced to it. It was almost like, I think she was just trying to get me out of the car park, probably doing really bad things.
So once you were in there, then what happened? What was the mindset like? Was it, wow, this is great, I want to be a champ, or is I just want to enjoy?
I think I was really surprised because she started coaching. She started coaching sort of, and had a group of us and started coaching. And I don't know what it was, but just sort of like the whole atmosphere of the whole sort of thing, and getting better, you know. And sort of each time I went to the youth club, you know, she'd teach me something else and different shots and different things like that. And you could actually sort of think, oh, actually, I'm getting quite good at this.
Yeah.
And then you sort of, you know, then sort of went from there, where you started thinking, well, actually, I'm beating all my mates now, you know. And so then you sort of got something then, almost, you know, you've got something to work with, if you like. And then just sort of went from there, really. And then after that, I sort of still carried on playing and stuff like that. Same again in other youth clubs. And then we had youth club tournaments and all this sort of stuff. And so, you know, it just sort of went from there, really. I mean, obviously into local league. Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, you know, went into local league, you know, and stuff like that as a junior. Happened to be fortunate enough to know or get seen by the likes of sort of Kev Satchel, who was in our area at that point, and managed to get in with Kev in a coaching environment with some of the Wiltshire lads that were around at the time, and sort of got into it then. And so each time, in each stage, you just get that little bit more hunger for where you want to be or what you want to do.
So I'm going to pull out the answer from your head now. In your mind, when you were kind of in that zone, in that time period, did your mind say, I want to be like Kevin Satchel, who was number 6 in England, or I want to play for England, or I just happy doing what I'm doing? What was the mindset? Just the brief answer.
I knew I could be quite good. I knew I could have been quite good. I knew I had something, but no, it wasn't necessarily, I think I can be best in the world or best in the country or anything like that. But I thought, well, you know, if I keep this up, I could be quite good at it.
Fair enough. See, I think it would be quite interesting to ask some of these pro players, did they come in straight away thinking like, yeah, I saw by chance Timmer Ball on the TV, I wanted to be like that. And that's for me, for example, because when I first got into the sport, it was just because of Forrest Gump. And Forrest Gump obviously went on to, I actually don't think he won the World Championships, but he was doing all these things and he was beating the Chinese. And then obviously he was awarded by Congress for his achievements in table tennis. And my mind just switched. It was like, well, I'm good at every sport. I'm going to definitely be the next world champion. And that was my mindset. And that was it. And I walked into the club very quickly and I thought, right, I'm going to beat everyone. And I got destroyed. But I had this mindset of tenacity where I said, I'm going to just beat you next time I play you. And I just kept coming back. And obviously I progressed very quickly. And my mindset stayed in terms of being, wanting to be world champion for many, many years, up until a certain breaking point where a few of, I would probably a bit unfortunate circumstances changed my mind, but then it gave me the opportunity to be who I am today, which is a coach. So in that respect, I'm proud and happy, and potentially one day I'll still coach a world champion. So I'll still achieve my dream.
Well, you've almost got almost had the best of both worlds, really.
Effectively, yes, I have, I guess.
You could still be a veteran world champion, Eli.
There you go. There you go.
He's got to beat me if he wants to do that.
Perfect. All right, guys, brilliant. So that's interesting. So most of you came into the sport kind of just, just because you enjoyed it, and it seemed like every single one of you changed your mind as you saw success, which is great and interesting. I'm the only one left out where I came in. I'm going to be world champion. Never made it. So good. Okay, so let's move on to question number 2, and this is really important because we've got different generations here, and I think this will be really interesting to understand where we're at currently. So I think what I'd like to start is with Ali, because Ali, you're the youngest, and you can give us a little bit of insight into your structure. As what was your support mechanisms back when you started? I want you to try and avoid your family and try to talk to me and give me an insight into your local area of community, club, tournaments, and whatever you can tell me about the structure, the infrastructure around you back in your time.
It's for me, yeah?
Please.
Okay. So for me, there wasn't really much sort of structure around with regards to sort of knowing where I'm going or what journey I'm going to be on or anything like that. At that point anyway. The only sort of guidance I would say that I had was probably through Kevin Satch, as to where I could be or where I could go, with by way of improving. But I didn't really know, what do I need to do to get to be like Kev Satch, really, other than be really, getting trained and stuff like that. So there wasn't an awful lot of guidance in that respect. Yeah, there wasn't really a lot.
How did you manage to become, a reasonably decent player, locally, nationally, county level kind of player, without much guidance? That doesn't quite make sense to me.
Yeah, I think mainly just lots of practice, lots of training, and a bit like what Sammy said, really. I was looking at players above me and around me, and so they were my targets, if you like. So they were my short-term goals, if you like. So so in effect, that they became my structure, if you like. So I would be thinking, well, I'm down in, Division 3 playing whatever and sort of learning and being coached, and I could see all these guys are ahead of me, and I was thinking, well, I need to be at that level to be able to beat them, and so I need to either train harder or practice harder or know more. I was also very lucky that later on I managed to get and meet with Jimmy Lowe, who was the ex-England international #1 junior back in the 40s. So when I met up with him, he was in his 60s and stuff like that, and I spent a lot of time with him practicing, because he happened to be in one of our teams, and he picked me.
Is this local league team?
So this was local league, yeah. So he happened to be, living locally. He was playing in a local team, and he happened to see me, and he said, "Why don't you come along?" So that's what I did, and I spent a lot of time practicing with Jimmy Lowe.
Oh, that's amazing. So you're kind of telling me that there wasn't much information, and you had to get information from players who were former past top internationals. Is that your kind of main information structure that you had?
Yeah, I didn't really know that there was any sort of pathway to go further. There wasn't really much about, really, for me back then, coming through.
I mean, we must take into consideration that back then there wasn't, the beauty of internet. You couldn't access information as easily.
Yeah.
So
a lot of it was.
Was there any booklets, pamphlets, posters, or clubs?
Not very much. Anytime you used to see anything, maybe was if you were at, say, local tournaments and stuff like that. You might see other events that were going on.
How did you get invited to local tournaments? How did you get that information?
So that was either usually just sent out via Teams and stuff like that, for, like you said, for leaflets and pamphlets and stuff like that, and then you'd apply for the tournaments and stuff.
And was there a lot of clubs around you? Did you go to many clubs, or you just stick at one club? Just give me a bit more insight.
I basically stuck with one club, and I was lucky that the one club that I was with had really good players in it. They were all top players, and so I was a junior at the time, and so they sort of took me under their wing, and so I got to know a lot more probably through them, to be fair, because they were the ones that were doing, you know, county. They were the ones that were playing British League. They were the ones that were doing all the tournaments and the Grand Prix and stuff. And so after a period of time, you know, they would be the ones saying, you know, if you want to get better, you need to be doing the tournaments. You need to be playing county. You need to be doing Grand Prix and stuff like that. So then I really just sort of tagged along with them most of the time as a junior. So they were already sort of in and amongst that scene. And so I just sort of followed in their footsteps, if you like.
Okay, so what I'm kind of making sense is that you were fortunate to land on a nice little club that had some top players, and they basically showed you the pathway. There was no real infrastructure as such. It was just about a bit of potluck a little bit. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, definitely. A bit of potluck.
Let's move on to Ed, who's a little bit younger than me, of course. Go ahead, Ed. Can you give us a little bit about?
Yeah. In terms of support, I think I was really lucky, to be honest with you. I started playing at school when I was sort of 11, nearly 12. And
how did you get into that?
Sorry?
They just had table tennis in your school, that's it?
Yeah, they did. And
how did they advertise it? How did you know about it?
Well, what it was, our maths teacher, he'd been at a couple of schools before he came to the secondary school that I went to. And he built a load of tables from scratch himself with his bare hands. And so every single day, 5 days a week, we had tables set up in the one hall.
Yeah, but how did you get to know? What made you aware of the table tennis? Did you just walk by one day and, oh, look at that? Or was there a leaflet? Just tell me how you found it.
The very first time that I played table tennis was at a sports centre, and it was just a random day. I just decided I wanted to have a go and you know, try it out. And yeah, so it sort of started at the old Birmingham Athletics Institute years ago. And it was not long after that that I started secondary school, and I was absolutely swamped with table tennis players. They were playing every day, 5 days a week. And the maths teacher played, the biology teacher played. They took us to tournaments, loads of schools championships every year. And yeah, I mean, I was really lucky in that respect. And the first place that I played, the Athletics Institute, I was fortunate enough to watch Des Douglas practice on a Saturday now and again.
Wow.
And I got to watch Matthew Syed practice now and again.
Cool.
And I also got to watch Alan Cook practice now and again as well. So it doesn't get better than that, does it?
No, so, not really. Not at all.
You know, so I was
not in England anyway.
No, so I was massively inspired from a really early stage. Yeah.
But again, this is what I wanna try and understand. That again, it seems to me like you were in even more of a fortunate area, where obviously Desmond is. Well, if you don't know who he is, then you don't know table tennis.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to understand is, how did you find these places? I mean, the way you're saying is like, well, I walked here, I went to the local centre, and everyone played, and then I played. I want to know, how did you find these places? Was there a poster somewhere? Did someone say, hey, Ed, I play table tennis down the road, that you want to come with me? What happened? What was that trigger?
You know, I'm 43 years old now. I'm trying to take my mind back 32 years. I'm pretty.
Actually, I can remember now that you've mentioned just that, Ellie. I can remember exactly what happened to me. I was actually practicing in a sports centre with my mate, and there was a couple of guys who were practicing as well, and they obviously played in a league, and they said, hey, you guys
Ah,
are playing
there
it.
you go. See,
That was my introduction to league.
That's what I'm looking for. I want to know
was the
these structures.
introduction.
How are we moving through the structure?
So
Not, I
went from that. So that's where I actually went. So
nice.
When we go through this again, I went from that. So I was practicing. A couple of guys, a couple of old boys said, "Hey, you young lads look quite good. You fancy playing?"
Brilliant. Okay.
It'll be spot on next time. Don't you worry about it. So yeah, there was taking my memory back. There was a poster.
That's interesting.
It advertised table tennis.
And who advertised that? Was that a private poster or was that by the association?
That was by the leisure centre. They just had a poster, a leaflet, and table tennis was mentioned. And I do remember thinking, well, I've never played that before. Why not?
Brilliant.
You know.
Okay, that's interesting. I like that. So
yeah.
And this is something that I also think is interesting that we need to try and think about. How can we start to advertise our sport better? And that's one of the reasons why I'm asking this question, because it's no good people telling us, oh, well, I just stumbled across somewhere. We want to know exactly how they got into it, and we want to try and tap into that. So obviously a leaflet seemed to have helped you. Ali, for you, it seemed to have been, well, these guys spotted you. So that's another thing that we might be able to do, is tell the table tennis community, if you see some young man or young girl or whatever it may be, give them a little nudge. Hey, why don't you come here? Why don't you come to this club? And by the way, that leads me quickly to when I just kind of first started coaching. Okay, I was already coaching a little bit, but I was in the park. I saw this kid came up to me out of nowhere, goes to me, oh, I can beat you running, cocky little. And I said to this kid, why don't you come to the club table tennis and let's see how good you are at a real sport? And then he became #1 in England. So you see, you know, these are the kind of things that us as the community need to work together to uplift the sport. So interesting, Ed. So let's move on to Sammy, who's the oldest of all of us.
Yeah, I know. I'll probably look it, to be honest. Before I answer your question, I think there's something quite interesting about our sport and the nature of how we advertise and why we advertise in a certain way, or how people stumble upon the sport. So there are lots of table tennis clubs and lots of communities and areas. But the thing is, it's so often the case that when you tell someone about it, they say, God, that's down my road. I never knew there was a table tennis club down there.
Exactly.
However, when it comes to football or rugby, people drive past football and rugby pitches every single day, and they go, "Oh, there's a football pitch down so and so." So we need to potentially be aware of the nature of advertising, or the specific advertising of our sport needs to be catered to the fact that things are quite hidden and sort of behind closed doors.
I think there's two reasons for that, and I like exactly what you say. But I'm going to give you an example. When I lived in France, first of all, there was full-time centres everywhere. So we don't have full-time table tennis clubs. And that's partially the reason. That's one. Yeah. Although when I worked at Barnet Table Tennis Centre, that was a full-time centre. And when people do drive by, and when I do speak to people within that area, they kind of go, oh yeah, I know that little hut place next to the football. They know because they see it every day when they drive past it. So in France, when I was in France, I would go and I would walk around the areas and stuff, and I would see, it would say Tennis de Table, Club de Tennis de Table, and I would know in my mind, oh, there's a club there. So it becomes subconscious, and it becomes a culture. People know, and so I agree with you, but it's also down to the fact that we don't have full-time centers.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. That's
because they get a bit like you said. The football is there the whole time. The golf club is there the whole time. So it's much easier for them to be noticed. Yeah. Anyway, so let's go back to your structure.
Yeah.
How you kind of stumbled onto it, which I know you said it was on holiday, but
so the club. Yes, the club. So of course I like table tennis. I went to leisure centres and so forth. However, I had a friend that I was quite close with, and I know I was quite young at the time, so we did sleepovers or whatever. But he had a table tennis table at his house, and he and his dad had gone to the club that I eventually ended up at, and his dad was a good player, played local league, and I was amazed by some of the things that his dad could do with the ball. But
Yes.
I was reasonable for what I had done, and he said to me, "Oh, if you're so, if you enjoy the sport so much and you want to get better, here is this club in X location." And obviously, I said, "Oh," and my mum, obviously, I was quite young. My mum was like, "Oh, that's just down the road where we live." So it was word of mouth, basically.
Okay. But you said that you started playing on holiday first. Is that right?
Yes.
How
But
did?
I wasn't regularly playing. I played on holiday, then
Yeah,
I
but
would
that
go
was
to
your
the
first
leisure
time?
centre. That was my first time.
And how did you hear about that? Did they come around asking you to play, or was there a post to come and play the championship?
So on holiday.
Yes. Yes.
I think it was just
Just a table there.
matter, yeah. It was just a matter of walking past a table tennis table sort of under a hut. And you
Yes.
could see, oh, there's a table tennis table. This could be in Centre Parks, Club Med or whatever. They all tend to be under a hut or something.
Yes. Yes. I mean, recently I was in Turkey, and but they had one of the people that worked there to come and ask everyone. They were tapping you. You know, you're lying down on the bed to sunbathe, and they're tapping you. You want to play table tennis? So that was quite interesting. So sorry. So carry on. So that kind of gave you the first initial trigger of table tennis.
The holiday.
Yes.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And then you moved on to a friend, which you were playing in their house, and then the friend again enticed you to come and play in the
Yes.
clubs.
Almost like a 3-stage process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. That's interesting. And I think it was similar-ish to me, because when I watched the film Forrest Gump, my friend, we were also doing the sleepover. My friend had a table, and I think it was an outdoor table, and it was a metal one, and you could fold it in half.
Yeah.
So I was like, great, I can do what Forrest did, and all night I was like, bashing it up against the table. And then I remember running back home to my mum and saying, look, I want to play table tennis. It's my new passion. And my mum knew a guy who owned a fruit shop who had a little club in a synagogue, and then he lived 2 or 3 doors away from us, so I literally could walk over to his house, and then he'd drive me to the club, and that was the initial beginning of my infrastructure. So a bit like yours, there was a 3-stage, and then but the thing with me, because I guess I wanted to be this so-called world champion, I always looked for the next to upscale. So once I went to that club, within a few months, I was already hunting, where's the best clubs, where's the best coaches. I was asking my coach, even though he didn't want to tell me at the time, I was like, where's the best club? I want to know, because he knew he would lose me effectively, and he didn't really want to. And that's probably another slight negative in our structure.
Were you at a stage though, Eli? Were you at that point? Were you at a
Ready to move on?
ready to move on?
I think so. And even if I wasn't, I think I should still be open.
Did you know you had to look? Did you know you had to? Did you feel that?
Just had that instinct that you know, I could see the way they played, and it wasn't where I saw the Forrest Gump kind of play, even though it was obviously fake, but they weren't doing the bang bang bang. They were very recreational.
Yeah.
You know, it was just a little small club, which was lovely, but I knew that it wasn't for me, and I was ready to move to the next stage. And I kept hunting around, and then basically what happened, because he wouldn't reveal the information, he put me in a local league within 6 months, and I managed to play against other clubs that some of them were better, and I would say, where's your club? And I'd go to their club, and then eventually after I think a year, we played against the so-called best club at the time in the league, which was called London Progress. And that effectively, I said, right, where are you based? I went down there, and that was a shock to my world when I opened the doors and I saw all these amazing players, and some of them England players. And then obviously, you know, that club, not at the time because it was still an infancy stage, but a few years down the line, it became the best club in England for about 10 years.
Mm-hmm. I think
So, yeah.
there's something that Sammy mentioned a little bit earlier on about word of mouth. And also when you mentioned, Eli, sort of full-time academies and stuff, I think given the current sort of scenario that we have, I think word of mouth is something that we have to use really well. I think, I mean, the academy that I'm currently running, I'd say that half of the people that use it are via word of mouth. So I
Nice.
think it's really useful to ensure that you do a good job, make it fair for everyone, make it enjoyable for the youngsters, and I think
Yes,
the sport can build that way
I agree.
really well. Yeah.
I think there's another thing I'd like to add to your thing is that, and I do it myself, although I don't think we're doing it right yet, but we will. I walk around everywhere with my logo, big on the back, table tennis. People know everywhere I go, and then I get tapped on the shoulder every so often. Oh, do you play table tennis? I think walking advert is also quite good for us to be doing. But the problem we have is our clothing in table tennis is, to be nice, it's not the most fashionable stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, Sammy. Sorry, you wanted to say something?
So I was going to ask Ed a question about his academy. So, of course, Birmingham table tennis, you say most of them, 50% of the people there came about there because of word of mouth. Would the goal of your academy be to sort of become an institution in your local community? So it's almost like it's a given that the place in Birmingham is Ed Lynn's academy, so it doesn't need word of mouth to get people to go there. It's just a known place.
Yeah, of course, that'd be fantastic. But I think I'm also quite conscious of the fact that you need to give all the other clubs an opportunity to thrive and to do well as well. So I wouldn't want to have a monopoly on the market as such. But if I could encourage many more to play, and then it becomes a bit more like an institution, then absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
I think there's enough numbers out there to fill every club easily.
Yeah, I do, definitely.
Yeah, they're hiding.
Yeah,
definitely. For sure. They're hiding, they don't know. You know, this is a real underground sport. Everywhere I go, when I speak to people who are just new to the sport, they're like, wow, I didn't realize.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a huge pathway to grow our sport. So Ali, I know you have one last question.
Okay, so I will ask Ellie this. So if you could go back in time and speak to your younger self and be able
to...
What
I'm talking about. I'm very young. Look at this lovely skin.
Yeah.
Hummus.
Yeah. So if you could go back and speak to your younger self, you know, what advice would you give your younger self other than,
you know, there's so many things that everyone can give themselves, so many pieces of advice, but I think that the best advice I can give myself is to find the best possible club and coach within your area. And you don't have to find, by the way, when I say best club, it doesn't have to be the biggest and number one club. It needs to be best for you, for what your requirements are. And, you know, if you want to be world champion, you can't go to the local club that has 2 tables or 1 table in a shed. It's just not going to work. You need to find, like Ed's, you can see behind the scenes, you need to find something like that. A proper...
Not like that, you mean?
Exactly like yours. So, you know, you've got to know
Don't start there.
Oh, exactly.
Ali, that's the type of place that Matthew Syed talks about in his book. That's where a lot of champions were made.
That's where they all start.
Yeah.
I started somewhere like that, so you know, I can't. But so just going back to my point is that I think a lot of players, what they do is they go into a place and they almost become comfortable. And this is a big fault for myself. I kind of almost became comfortable. Although I did push myself, but I reckon I could have pushed myself a lot more. So try and find a club that you think can provide the best opportunities for you, and definitely look for that coach that cares and can provide for you. And if they can't provide, try and find the coach that can provide, even though he can't provide personally. So let's say like someone like me, there was one point where I couldn't provide for one of my players, then I'd start making phone calls. Hey, can you come down and train with them? Can you do this? Can I send them to your club? So I would always look for ways to develop my players, even if I can't cater for them personally. And I think that's something so important. If I could go back in time is find that coach which truly can enable me to have fulfilled my true potential. Because I honestly think I didn't really fulfill my potential because I didn't have, I mean, I had a lovely coach, but he just didn't have the ability to give me what I needed, which is one of the reasons why I thrive upon being the best coach I can possibly be, because I just want to make sure I deliver the best possible service and product to my students.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So, Ed.
Yeah. If I could go back in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd advise myself to not give up, because I gave up for 12 years. Possibly very similar to Eli, maybe try and find the best coach in the land that you can. Failing that, move abroad, take a chance, and just give it 100% and don't give up at all. That would be the advice I'd offer to myself. Yeah. I gave up a little bit easy, and I felt that that's when the support dried up, as it does for most people when they get to about 17 years of age. It's a big problem in England, I think. So yeah, I mean, anyone out there that's at that age, if you think you're good, move abroad, go to the best training environment you can, and just keep pushing and don't stop. Yeah,
it's good. Yeah. And well, Sammy boy, bit of a difficult one for you.
No, it's not too difficult, but yeah.
But maybe you could do maybe a rewind and then a forward to where you might want to be.
Okay. In terms of rewind, what would I tell myself when I started when I was about 11 or 12? I would tell myself to believe in myself more, as in terms of my abilities, because I always thought I was good, but I didn't have belief that I could win or be amongst the good players as I saw it, and also to be more ambitious in my goals.
Nice.
And I think the ambition, whether it would be misguided or not, it's almost like if you aim for the stars, you might land on the moon, so to speak.
Yeah.
So in terms of forward, what would I advise my future self or myself now? I would say be more adaptable and be more willing to practice the mundane when you're not in ideal circumstances, because like at certain levels it's always marginal things that make a difference. So be willing to practice the mundane and the incredibly boring.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So have you been practicing your serves during this pandemic?
He always practices serves.
Yeah.
I like to practice my serves in here as well.
Yeah, that's also good. That's the way I developed my serves, by practicing them first in my mind. I would imagine different movements and then I would incorporate it in reality.
Mm-hmm. But another piece of advice that I probably tell myself, be honest as well, because once we get to a certain age, we do want certain things, but priorities change, and it's sort of being honest with yourself as sort of saying, is this the number one priority or the number 3 priority as well? So things change over time too.
So adapt as time moves forward, be adaptable, and then maybe restructure your goals.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's great advice. Brilliant.
Yeah. I think also, from my point of view, answering the question, there's definitely one aspect that I regret, and that is that I had probably one of the best coaches that you could probably have in Kevin Satchell. And I think for me, I probably took that for granted a bit, and I didn't really know what I had with Kevin Satchell, because I hadn't been around anyone else and I hadn't done anything. So I probably took that for granted for what I for the amazing coach that he was and player that he was. I took that for granted, and I would probably go back and give myself a really good slap across the face and tell myself to really listen a lot more to what Kev was saying at the time, and absolutely soak it up. Because
this is the huge problem with everything, though, isn't it? Though, when you don't have something, you want something so big, and then when you do have it, you think, well, I've got it, it's normal. So it's such a, you see, really, what I used to do with my players is I want them to realize how lucky they were, and I would send them to other clubs, and they would come back, oh, that was rubbish, and I would keep quiet, but I would kind of play with their minds to make them realize how lucky they are.
And I definitely would do that to myself back then. I would definitely give myself a good shake and say, look, you know, you've got something here, and you really need to listen to this guy, because he's going to take you further than you'll probably know. You know, and I probably didn't. You know, and there was even many times. I mean, Kev was, you know, a great player, great coach, and you know, he even sort of said to me this one time, and it was a bit like, I remember you talking about, Ellie, where you were saying, I can't remember who you were coaching or who it was, but I remember you saying that sometimes you've got to know when to let go, or let them move on, or move them on, or stuff like that, or accept that they're going to stop, or not get any better, or something like that. You know, and it made me actually think of a conversation that I did actually have with Kev. And I remember he sat me down this one time and just sort of said, you know, you're quite good, Ali. You know, you could be quite good. So do you want to be really good, or do you want to be a good player, you know, or do you want to be the top player? And he said, that's the sort of thing that you have to make that decision. You know, you've got the chance to be a top player. Do you want to be that top player? And he said, and it's fine if you don't. It's fine if you don't. But he said, if you are going down that path, you know, you really are going to need to fully focus, fully commit, and go down that path. And I'll be with you 100%. You know, and that's what I can remember. And I remember that conversation with him. And he said, and it's fine if you don't want to do that. You know. And you can just go down, and you can still enjoy it, and you can still be a really good player. And he said, and that's all good. He said, but the difference between being at the top and being a good player, there is that difference. There is a big difference.
Oh, it's huge
you have to make that decision mentally in your head, and absolutely nail it day in, day out, day in, day out. And he said, if you can't do that, you need to have, you know, you need to think that for yourself. And accept it. Accept which road you're going down, Ali. You know, and that's what he sort of said to me. And he said, and it's fine whichever it is. It's fine whichever it is. There's no right or wrong.
Yes.
But you need to know that if you know, if you're skipping coaching, or if you're doing this or you're not doing that, don't think you're going to be at the top, because you won't.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. All great stuff, guys. Really enjoyed conversations, the insights. I think we've seen a variety of generations, which is really interesting, because obviously we need now to look as to how we can build forward the table tennis infrastructure, and it's interesting to look at the past, the present, and potentially looking into the future as to how we can develop it. I think we have come up with some great stuff there, and also we saw some stumbling blocks where a lot of us don't quite know how we got into table tennis. We kind of almost stumbled across it from various ways, and we need to look into that, how we can potentially increase much better awareness throughout, and then also a good infrastructure at the bottom where people know the direction where they can go. It just seems like, well, I found some guy and they told me to play in the local league, and then I kind of stumbled here, and then I got lucky that I found one good guy and they showed me this way. And I'm not quite sure that's what we need. We need to know, like in football, they know as soon as they step in to that little, you know, Sunday league, whatever it is, the little kiddie leagues, they know, every coach knows that those stepping stones, and the kids are vulnerable. They know exactly where they can go if they want to go that way. So I think that's something all of us together can work towards. Any
Yeah,
final
definitely.
touches? Any final words?
In terms of
Anything you want to say about the whole
Yeah.
show today? Anything?
Well, I suppose in relation to what you were just saying, I mean, it might not be the only way to do it, but in China, there is the clear process.
Halfway. Yeah.
So that's an example. I don't know the ins and outs, but I know that they know the process.
So you're saying potentially what we could do is we can maybe try and hijack their system.
Exactly.
Okay.
But
It obviously works.
if you look on the internet, a lot of clubs don't have a very good social media presence.
That's very true.
We're in the 21st century now.
Yeah.
So I think clubs need to be a little bit more proactive, and if they push a little bit harder, I think they'll recruit a lot of local sort of youngsters and stuff as well into the sport.
Definitely agree there. Definitely agree there.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
we were all talking about, word of mouth and stuff like that. I mean, that's what the internet is. Let's face it. That's what social media is. So, if the sport can't absolutely utilize that to its fullest degree, then we really are doing. We've got a massive tool available to us to be able to get it out there, which never had it in my day. So back then, it wasn't. So yeah, I think internet and social media and stuff should be absolutely crucial to get it going. It's crucial to get it going.
I think if you live in London and you're a casual player and you're looking for a coach, and you type in table tennis coaches London, if Ellie's name comes up and it's got 5-star rating next to it,
Yeah,
you're in.
Yeah.
If you've got 2 stars next to your name, it doesn't matter how much you've done; they're not going to book you.
yeah.
So we're in like almost like the retail business, aren't we?
Yeah.
We've got to sell the sport.
Definitely got to sell the sport.
Brilliant, guys. It's been fantastic. Thank you all for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your experience. It's been great. So for me and Ali, we're going to call it a day with the show for tonight. See you next time.